Welcome back to LePodcast, episode 92. As always, you're here with your hosts, Hoop and Sainey. Today's deep dive is on Sainey's favorite player, Russell Westbrook. I'm very excited too, but I'm imagining this is like your Melo episode. That's how I felt during Carmelo Anthony.
I'll say this to everybody who's watching this on YouTube and can see my face. I look terrible right now. I didn't get much sleep because I stayed up watching Lakers Westbrook highlights in preparation for this because I felt like I needed a refresher. I have to do the audience justice by not being biased. So I'm excited, but I'm also dreading a certain segment for sure.
Well, you could also push whatever narratives you want to push.
Oh, I got a lot of narratives. I got a lot of narratives.
I'm just here to keep you in check because I got my own stuff that, I feel a certain way.
I'll say this: the Lakers segment by far will be the most banter we have done on this show.
How
I believe because I will wholeheartedly admit that I'm the most stubborn guy when it comes to my own opinion. I think you know that when it comes to basketball. And I just want you to prepare for. I genuinely grew extra toes, and I'm staying 12 toes down now on whatever I'm about to say. So, I mean, good luck trying to convince me otherwise. But let's just get started.
Yeah, that might be like an hour or two from now when we discuss the Lakers because there is a lot to debate when it comes to Russell Westbrook. But starting off, as we always do, his draft year, which was 2008. I didn't realize how stacked this draft was and how much potential it had to be one of the greatest classes of all time. And you'll understand what I mean when I say this. Derrick Rose went number 1 to Chicago. Michael Beasley went to Miami at number 2. OJ Mayo went to Minnesota at number 3. Russ went 4 to, at the time, Seattle. He never played as a Sonic, but he hoisted a Supersonics jersey on draft night as they were switching to the Thunder. Kevin Love was drafted to Memphis. Him and OJ Mayo got flipped. Danilo Gallinari to the Knicks. After all that talent, the Knicks get Danilo Gallinari. Eric Gordon to the Clippers. Joe Alexander to Milwaukee, who played like 20 NBA games. DJ Augustine to Charlotte. Shout out DJ Augustine. And Brook Lopez to the New Jersey Nets. Other draft picks that year, you had DeAndre Jordan, Serge Ibaka, Goran Dragic, Roy Hibbert. But off rip, like Derrick Rose, Michael Beasley, OJ Mayo, on top of Russ and Kevin Love, that could have been like a crazy draft.
OJ Mayo, number 1, was insane for the first few years of his career. He had the fall off, obviously, because there's that, we're not going to talk about it on the show, but he's banned from the NBA. I think he's allowed back now, but there's a reason he got banned from the NBA.
Yeah.
But anyway, at the beginning of OJ Mayo's career, he was a great scorer. Michael Beasley's Michael Beasley, self-explanatory, go to New York. And I know you made a little comment about Danilo Gallinari, but in the Knicks, and the Knicks
No,
defense,
he was nice.
Who else was there to draft at that point, though? No, seriously, right? Because Ibaka was not seen as that great yet. And Ibaka, honestly, as a career, like he was great defensively for the first like 4 or 5 seasons, and then he fell off like majorly. Right.
I saw Brook Lopez going like top 5 in mock drafts. And I'll tell you why I was looking at mock drafts. I don't want to get too into the 2008 draft. I could talk about Michael Beasley all day, but Russell Westbrook was not considered like, you know how there's college basketball players who just don't translate to the NBA. Kevin Love was Kevin Love was not one of those people, but he was, I mean, statistically, and I also believe he was what's UCLA? What division is that? Some player of the year. Anyways, Kevin Love averaged 18 to 11 in college, which is that's a lot of stats. Russ averaged 13, 4, and 4. And Westbrook was being projected as low as the 12th pick. And he was selected because of how amazing the scouts of OKC are, or Seattle at the time, because he was an athlete that no one's ever seen before. He was I think he was all defensive at UCLA.
Which is crazy to think about.
What?
Because you do not think of Westbrook as a defensive guard.
Well, there's a lot of things in his early years about him being like a feisty defender, which he,
especially,
he had all the tools
in
to
the
be.
Olympics. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, he definitely was.
I can actually read you the draft report of who they thought Russ was going to be. His draft comparison, this is just on one guy's opinion. I saw someone else say Randy Foye, but I decided to go with this one. Rajon Rondo / Monte Ellis. Here's the description. Athletic and explosive combo guard with the length to make up for his lack of height. Attacks the basket with a lethal first step and crossover ability. Can handle the rock well and gets into the lane effortlessly. Finishes well at the rim and is unafraid to go up in traffic. Huge wingspan allows him to play much bigger than his 6'3" height. Gets good lift on his jump shot and has a quick release. Solid passer with unselfishness. Always looks for the open man. Has an excellent, I repeat, excellent mid-range game. A gym rat, really works hard to improve. Has a great attitude, extremely coachable. Has the potential to be a big-time scorer when given the chance. Really excels.
I don't like how you worded that. He did have a good mid-range game.
What?
Westbrook is on the Thunder had a great mid-range game.
I guess. Really excels defensively and has a chance to develop into a great defender. His anticipation for steals and his on-ball defensive ability are special. Solid passer who shows the ability to play the point guard position. Sorry, I'm picking at you.
I'm looking up his mid-range stats right now if you want to continue. I'm looking up his percentages on the Thunder. He was a great mid-range shooter.
So aside from the draft and where he was supposed to be projected to go, regardless, he went 4th overall above Kevin Love. They went back-to-back. I'm sorry. Rookie year, he shot 55% from the mid-range. Next season, 57%. Next season, 59%. Next season, 56%. Next season, 50%. Next season, 45%. Next season, 51%. Like, you can see this trend, right? You can see that trend, right? You hear how many 50s I just gave you? I also saw him on the Lakers.
50s I just gave you?
I also saw him on the Lakers. I did see
on
that.
the Lakers, he shot 44% from the mid-range.
That's like
which isn't terrible.
It's like a 10% drop-off from what you were just saying.
Okay. It's also like we've agreed that it's his worst season ever. Okay. What his scouting report is supposed to translate to his like 17th year in the league? Come on, you know.
Let me get started. Anyways,
I'm not biased.
Russell Westbrook's rookie year, he's drafted to a Thunder team where the opening night roster does not have him at the starting point guard position. He was benched for, Earl Watson, who was like a solid, journeyman veteran point guard. They had KD, Jeff Green, and Nick Collison all playing with a center. So I'd imagine KD was at the 2 guard. They had him listed as a small forward, but unless you're going to run Jeff Green at the 2, I guess. Russ, in his rookie year, averaged 15, 5, and 5 on 40% shooting. He led the second worst offense in the league. And I don't mean to say led. I just say led because I say led when he does the good offenses too. It's the point guard that like you attribute to good offenses. Anyways, the Thunder that year finished 23-59. Russ makes all rookie first team, and he was rookie of the month twice. His first triple-double was March 2nd, 2009. He put up 17, 10, and 10 versus Dallas. He did have a triple-double in his rookie year. Moving on to year 2, the Thunder add Thabo Sefolosha, and their center, they had like 10 different centers there his rookie year. Nenad Kristic is now the big man. James Harden also arrives on the scene with Serge Ibaka, so you have those guys coming off the bench. Russ averaged 16, 8, and 5 on 42% shooting, led the 12th ranked offense in the league. He now has 2 career triple-doubles. He got another one this year, and this one was better statistically. He had 22, 14, and 10. Now, the Thunder finished that year 50-32, which is surprisingly only the 8th seed in the West. But that is a huge jump from the last year. And they played the Lakers in round 1 of the playoffs. Now, Westbrook versus the Lakers in his second year and his first playoffs was 26-6 on 47, 40, 84. With that being said, he played incredible, which is something that I feel like a lot of people don't mention. But in Game 6, I'm not going to leave this out. I watched the ending of the game. He kind of sold. And you could point to other Thunder players. They should have played better throughout the course of the game. But let me give you a situation. This is game 6 versus the Lakers. They lost in 6. So if they had won this game, they could have pushed it to a game 7. OKC was up 94-91 with 2 minutes, 30 seconds left. And they were still up 94-93 with 15 seconds left. So they had a 2-minute gap.
The Pau Gasol, yeah.
That happened. I was going to get to that.
Yeah.
Kobe hit like a weird, crazy mid-range shot within that time span. But the Thunder had 3 shots within those 2 minutes before the last possession to possibly pad the lead. Westbrook took all 3 shots. The first one was an air ball about a foot short. The next was about a foot long. It hit the back of the rim. And the next was like it hit the side of the rim from 8 feet away. And I'm not trying to hate on Russ. I'm just being objective. I watched the game. I was like, dang, because I will support Russ just like you, but I need to spread the truth because I know you won't. Anyways, then Russ guarded Kobe one-on-one for Kobe's chance to win the game. There's like 15 seconds left. They're still only up by 1. I could have thought Kobe was definitely going to ice the game. Misses a fadeaway, but Pau Gasol tips it in with 0.5 left. Then Russ technically gets the last chance to knock down a 3 with 0.5 left, but I'm not counting that miss to his like awful miss total because that was just something you had to heave up. But yeah, that happened. It's only his second year. He had an incredible playoffs, but that did happen. Year 3, you could also feel free to jump in because there's a lot of years that I'm running through before we get to the Kevin Durant parting. But in year 3, this Thunder team now has like their core of extremely solid young players, and they're just winning off of raw talent with Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Serge Ibaka. And instead of Nenad Kristic, they add Kendrick Perkins, my good friend, to the roster as like the permanent center. In the year 3 for Russ, they added him like at the end of the year. So he was their starting center in the playoffs. Russ jumped up to 22, 8, and 5 on 44% shooting. This is a pretty good statistical year. He made his first All-Star team, first All-NBA team. He was not first All-NBA team. He was second, but it was his first time being an All-NBA selection. The Thunder now have the 5th best offense in the league, and the Thunder win 55 games. This team is like ridiculously fun to watch. They make the Western Conference Finals. Throughout the year, Russ gets 4 more triple-doubles and now has 6 through 3 years. This year, his best was 35, 13, and 13. Now, in the playoffs, this is how the Thunder made their run. They beat Denver in 5, and this was the Ty Lawson-led Denver with Aaron Aflalo, Gallinari, Kenyon Martin, and Nene. That was a cakewalk, but they then had to face the grit and grind Grizzlies with Mike Conley, Tony Allen, O.J. Mayo, Zach Randolph, and Marc Gasol. They beat them in 7. What I will say is that Rudy Gay was hurt, and he averaged 20 points per game for them, and Memphis struggled to shoot from the outside, and he was a 40% three-point shooter that year. I'm just laying it out there. But didn't matter. Next series, they lost to the eventual champions in the Dallas Mavericks, which we just talked about last week, in 5. Russ shot 39% this playoffs and averaged like 4.6 turnovers, but he had a 40-point game versus Memphis. And I'm sorry, I'm like framing your boy here. Is there anything you have to say about all this, or should I keep moving on? What?
No, go.
All right. In year 4, now Russell Westbrook averages 24, 5, and 5 on 45% shooting. He dropped off in assists by like a solid margin. I believe he had 8 the year before, but this is because of James Harden's emergence. James Harden is now a serious threat off the bench. He's averaging 4 assists and like 16 points, I believe. No triple doubles this year for Russ because of the he hasn't become an elite rebounder yet, and the assists have gone down. But in the playoffs, because of James Harden, who's now taking a lot of weight off of him, he only is averaging 2.3 turnovers, and he's shooting 43% from the field. Those are very respectable numbers. In the playoffs, they take on Dallas, who they played the year before. They sweep them. They take on the Lakers with it's still pre-injury Kobe. They beat them 4-1, and they beat the Spurs 4-2. This is the year they get to the finals and play the Heat. What a lot of people forget is that they were actually favored to win the finals. The Spurs that year were like not title favorite, but they were like serious threats to Miami. And they were a team who had won 20 straight games in the regular season, and the OKC Thunder beat them 4 straight. They got down 0-2 and they beat them 4 straight. The Heat, on the other hand, were struggling against the Celtics, and they had to beat them in a very hard-fought 7-game series. So going into the finals, people actually, like Vegas, had OKC as the favorites. Now, would analysts say that? I don't know with their lack of experience, but this was like a crazy fun team to watch. And statistically, Russell Westbrook was pretty great in the finals for a guy who was only like 22, 23. He averaged 27, 6, and 6 on 43% shooting. Now, I would argue, and you can jump in on this because I'm sure you feel very strongly about this series, that Miami won the series as opposed to the Thunder losing it. When I say that, because it sounds idiotic, Miami just shot like 43% from 3 as a team, literally 43%. Mike Miller in games in the closeout game hit like 7 or 8 threes, was like 8 for 8. OKC shot 30%.
Mike Miller was like playing barefoot at one point, and like
yeah,
should have been a technical. Nah, yeah, but like, man, I don't want to talk about this, bro. It's. I don't want to talk about this.
I'm trying to give Russ the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, the Thunder played great. Westbrook, especially game 1, that was his best game of the series, and that was the only game that the Thunder won. They looked amazing, and then LeBron just came out hitting every shot possible. It was like the opposite of Dallas. It made no sense. And Dwayne Wade, you know that spin move, by the way, that and one spin move? Who the hell fouled him? Nobody fouled him. Go watch that. To this day, you know that spin move where he dunks on Kendrick Perkins and they called a foul? Who the hell fouled him? Where was the foul?
I'll back you here because the OKC actually took game 1, and they were about to tie up game 2 with like 20 seconds left. KD was on the baseline. They were down 2 points, and he absolutely got fouled by LeBron and should have been on the line for 2, and then it would have been either a Miami game winner or overtime, but they never called the foul.
No, the refs were biased.
They got to protect the king.
No, they actually, that was like the start of like, oh, let's create LeBron. No. It's not LePodcast anymore. It's KD Cast, okay? and that's me saying it. But listen to this, all right? That, by far, I'm not going to say that. I don't believe that. I was going to say the worst officiating I've ever seen. No, it's not. No, it's not.
To be fair, though, like that would have been a series that was potentially 2-0. I'm
running that D Wade clip back while you continue. I'll literally I'm going to show you. Hold on.
Okay. Anyways, let's move into year 5, which is now the 2012-2013 season. James Harden parts the team to join the Houston Rockets so he can not only catch his bag, but catch his some of the best stats any player has ever gotten. There was not enough room on the team for him to flourish as the superstar he became. So, unfortunately, time just did him away. But they get Kevin Martin in return, and the Thunder are actually still really, really good. Kevin Martin is now the 6th man. Russ averages 23, 7, and 5 on 44% shooting. This is one of his most efficient years of his career. He gets another triple-double this year, means he has 5 seasons played and now 7 triple-doubles. OKC won 60 games without James Harden, and Russ was leading the number 1 offense in the NBA. That's how good of a team this was. They're the number 1 seed in the West, and they play Houston round 1. Now, they look great the first 2 games. By the end of game 2, Russell Westbrook and the Thunder call a timeout. He's sitting on the top sideline if you're watching the TV, and this little guy named Patrick Beverley tries to take the ball from Russell Westbrook, but he hits his knee, and Russell Westbrook tears his meniscus. So now the team that won 60 games, that was just going to stick it to their former teammate who left and was potentially going to have a rematch with the Miami Heat in the finals, now has lost their second best player. And at this point, pretty much a superstar in Russell Westbrook. They still handle the Rockets without him, but they lose to the grit and grind Grizzlies in 5. And that is sad. That is sad. He was mad at Pat Bev. I watched the video last night, bro. He slammed the scorer's table. That was tough. Anyways,
yeah, and then he had the surgery. That's why KD got his MVP.
I don't want to linger here because there's a lot of stuff about this injury that I have. Anyways, he had a surgery to repair. I think it was his lateral meniscus is the medical term. So in June in the offseason, I guess he had that repaired right away. But then in June, Russ posted a Vine throwing his crutch into a pool saying, "I'm back," which is actually really funny if you go look it up on YouTube. He was through with the initial surgery in June, but the Thunder were not releasing any statements about whether or not he was actually going to play. He was just off the crutch, obviously. But he had another surgery October 1st, which is dangerously close to the season. It's called an arthroscopic surgery because he had a loose stitch in his right knee where they did the initial work. Despite this, he was ready to play by the third regular season game against Phoenix. Now, Russ played only 46 games. Before this year, he had always played 82. He was like an Iron Man. But Pat Bev had other plans. Anyways, after Christmas that year, because he had been playing after the first 2 games, he played throughout pretty much the whole season up to this point. After Christmas, he felt discomfort and needed a third surgery on his knee. It's a miracle that he was still so explosive afterwards. But he missed 27 games that year because of the other arthroscopic surgery. He finished the season playing somewhat limited minutes. He was playing like every other game and like 30 minutes a night. And he was playing full minutes in the playoffs. Was he completely ready? I probably not. But Russ is a dog, so he's going to play high minutes in the playoffs every night. Anyways, in these playoffs, he averaged 27, 8, and 7. The OKC Thunder, even with Russ playing limited games, still just win about 60 games. They're the second seed in the West, 59 wins. They beat Memphis in 7, a team they just see about every year right now. They beat the Lob City Clippers in 6, and they lost to the 2014 beautiful basketball Spurs, which there's not much you could do about. We did a
They lost 4-2, right?
They lost in 6, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a team that, like, when they're clicking, no one can beat.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I watched that series too. That was the year that Westbrook had that poster dunk on Kawhi, right?
I was actually going to ask you about Lob City. That was the Chris Paul.
I showed
Thunder,
you that.
right?
Remember when I was like,
yeah.
So when I went to visit Hoop,
yeah, Sainey was over my house. He pulled it up because I have League Pass, and he's like, "Yo, we got to watch this game."
This is how you know I genuinely, like, I'm in like every series OKC has played. Like I am a genuine OKC fan, like true to heart, like everything. And I remember I sat down with Hoop. It's so funny that we're talking about the series now. And I was like, Hoop, you want to see like the best closeout basketball you could ever see? And we watched the what game was it? I believe it was game 5. Maybe. It was in OKC. And it was when the Clippers just had a complete choke job and they blew a lead to OKC, and OKC went on to win the game. And Chris Paul, nobody talks about this. Chris Paul, like, sold. Like, he had a bunch of turnovers. The Clippers just didn't know what to do. And the Thunder just destroyed them. And it was just like that series in general. I remember there's like an iconic photo of Kevin Durant, like, sitting on the other side of the court, turned away from Westbrook when Westbrook was shooting 3 straight free throws because Westbrook got fouled on the 3-pointer. I don't know if it was to ice the game or to close out the game, and Durant couldn't even, like, look. But that was an insane series. And I remember, and the thing I remember most about that series is, funny enough, I didn't get to watch it live. I didn't have TV back then. So I had this app, and I would refresh it, and it would read play-by-play what was happening. And I had like a little iPod. I was on my iPod. I swear to God, it was like this iPod 4 my friend handed me down. And I'm sitting there refreshing. And it says, Westbrook hits 1 free throw out of 3. I'm like, and I'm at like my school, like on the Wi-Fi. Westbrook hits 2 free throws out of 3. I'm like refreshing it constantly, which was awesome. But Yeah, that's a dope series. That's maybe by far one of my favorite series I've ever watched as a Thunder fan.
Yeah, so Russ also, that series, shot 49%. He shot 38% in Memphis. I'm not going to linger on the percentages too much because I still think he's a little hurt. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for, shot 40% versus the Spurs, but it is what it is at this point. Anyways, we move into 2015. We have another injury-riddled year, except this time it's Kevin Durant. And what's interesting is that, he eventually got shut down for the year, but KD was not ruled out with a torn ACL or like a torn Achilles. It was foot issues where he had different toe problems and ankle issues. It was all in his right foot. So people thought he was just being like a wimp when he was sitting out games because of his right foot. But he only played 27 games and had to sit out the rest of the year. He eventually got shut down. And the Thunder actually missed the playoffs this year. And Russell Westbrook averaged 28, 8, and 7. So without KD, he won the scoring title. That year, he got 11 more triple doubles. His total is now 23 through 7 seasons. That was a year where they really kind of threw it away because not they threw it away. But that's a year that I'm sure you wish you could get back because that was a year where both of them were fresh off of Western Conference Finals.
That was a year to win it. That was a year where nobody knew. Because, in hindsight, now you're like, oh, LeBron went to 9 straight finals or whatever, how many straight finals he went to. It was obvious they were going to go to the finals. And then Golden State obviously comes out on top, right? But that was the year you did not know who was going to win it. Because Cleveland didn't look like... We didn't know Cleveland was going to be as good as they were. They almost lost to Chicago, right?
And with Kevin Love, that was Kevin Love, his arm got ripped out by Kelly Olynyk. His arm got
ripped out, and then... that sounds way worse than what he dislocated his shoulder. His arm got ripped off.
No, bro, he tried to rip his arm off.
Yeah, no, it was insane. But Golden State also wasn't Golden State yet. They were in the regular season, but they haven't won yet, right?
And Steph won an MVP, but it was there was a lot.
It was a 23 points per game MVP. It wasn't an insane MVP. It was not 2016. It was the worst of his 2 MVPs for sure. And people forget, here's an interesting fact, by the way, that genuinely only true OKC fans would know. So Oklahoma, I believe they were 45 and 37 that season, right?
Yeah.
They were tied for the 8th seed with New Orleans. But New Orleans goes on to play Golden State. So Golden State missed out on playing OKC. Do you want to know why Golden State missed out on playing OKC? Because Anthony Davis earlier that season hits a game winner against OKC. And that game ended up being the tiebreaker to led New Orleans to taking the 8th seed. And New Orleans actually only had I think below a 1% chance 2 weeks before the season ended to get that 8th seed. It was Oklahoma. Oklahoma was projected to get it. But since New Orleans had a game winner against Oklahoma, they now had the tiebreaker against them for the season series, which means that they get to play Golden State that year. So genuinely, OKC missed the playoffs on a ridiculous, absurd Anthony Davis double clutch 3-pointer fadeaway game winner. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Where he runs, grabs
that shot.
KD's hand is right, or Roberson or KD's hands in his face. That's why the Oklahoma missed the playoffs. That shot.
Yeah,
so
and
Golden State was a ridiculous Anthony Davis shot away from playing KD and Russ in the first round.
Would KD have played?
Things be different? Yeah, KD would have played.
Wait, hold up. I thought he got shut down for the year.
I think he got shut down for the season, but if they made the playoffs, he would have played, would he not?
I would hope so, because Kevin Durant, but hold up. I don't think he played the rest of it. Can you look that up? Look up his game log, see if you... All right. Anyways, I was going to mention the roster makeover from the early 2010s to now the mid-2010s. But in 2016, this is year 8 for Russ. He now has a lineup of Westbrook, a lineup of himself. He's playing the point. He's got Andre Roberson at the 2, KD at the 3, Serge Ibaka at the 4, and now Steven Adams at the 5. In 2016, Russ averaged 23, 10, and 8. This is his first time averaging a double-double, very close to a triple-double. And believe it or not, Steph was unanimous, but they give each voter for the MVP gives their first, second, and third place. And based on the point totals, Russ was ahead of Kevin Durant in MVP voting that year. Russ that year had 19 triple-doubles, now has a total of 42 through his 8 seasons played. The Thunder were the 3rd seed, and this was another year that you probably don't want to talk about. They beat up on like a 37-year-old Dirk Nowitzki and Raymond Felton in round.
The most infamous Raymond Felton jumper is when he hits a jumper and he does this every time he walks back. I love it. It's actually like the most Raymond Felton celebration.
It is crazy how, because I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I just feel like I need to, because these 2016 Mavericks, like nowadays, if you were to put them in today's league, no shot they're making the playoffs. Anyways, they went 42-40. I'm just going to read you off the roster here. And this is no disrespect. This is how crazy the league was. They had a 31-year-old Darren Williams at the point. This was Chandler Parsons on like that ridiculous contract. Raymond Felton, a 37-year-old Dirk, Wesley Matthews, Zaza Pachulia is their starting center. They got J.J. Barea, Devin Harris, a 24-year-old Dwight Powell. Like, is it just me, or is that such a...
Dwight Powell was on that. How old is Dwight Powell?
Dwight Powell has been mid for the Mavericks for his entire life.
I thought he was drafted in like 2018.
No, he was drafted in the 2014 draft.
What?
Yeah. He actually was drafted to Boston. Was he? Yes. And then he was traded to Dallas.
Dwight Powell deep dive coming.
Yeah, Mavericks fans hate Dwight Powell. I know that for a fact.
That's funny.
He's supposed to be this like athletic power forward with a bunch of, upside, but he just finishes alley-oops. I'm pretty sure that's about it. Dude, highest rebounding season was like 5.7. Shout out to Dwight Powell though. I'm sure he's a great guy.
He's Canadian.
All that to say, like that Mavericks team led by a 37-year-old Dirk is just not one that I see making the playoffs nowadays. And they won 42 games back then. Anyways, they had Raymond Felton, so of course they're going to make the playoffs. Anyways, the next round, because they beat up on Dallas. They beat San Antonio in 6. This was the first year of the Kawhi LaMarcus Aldridge experiment. Anyways, they handle them. And in the Western Conference Finals, they take on the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. You know what's so crazy? They were up 3-1 in this series, and I made sure to refresh my memory. I watched like game recaps and stuff of the last 2 games. Klay Thompson had the game of his life, and when he like flexes that he's Game 6 Klay, I understand it's corny, but that was truly one of the best playoff performances by a when I say all-time great, I mean like an MJ, or like that was seriously one of the best playoff performances by a generational player that I've ever, like 11 threes in OKC to propel you to Game 7. And to be fair, that game, all those threes were needed. The Warriors, for the most part, playing catch-up. The Thunder made a very close game, and at the end, they had a couple bad turnovers. I think Russ was on a fast break. Draymond poked it off Russ's leg. A couple of like weird things like that. And it's okay because they're going to a Game 7. Only thing in the Game 7 is that they're in Golden State, and a bunch of threes happen. And Russ and I think KD shot well that game, but he obviously did not play well the previous. And Russ shot 7 for 21 last game, but it just slips away. And now you have a stretch from 2010 to 2016 where you have a very promising core, whether it's with Harden, without Harden, that has a legitimate shot to make some noise in the finals, and they do make some noise in the finals and the Western Conference Finals, but it never just comes together. But you still have Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant in their primes. Kevin Durant's in free agency, but why would he go anywhere else if they were this close to beating the 73-9 Warriors? I mean, you got a team with Serge Ibaka, a great core that has had proving success. there's no reason for him to leave, right?
Oh,
I'm just setting it up. I'm sorry, I'm being dramatic.
is this a transition for me?
Yeah.
This is, and when I mean like genuinely, like I have a few 4K moment memories in my head where I can genuinely give you every detail of a memory in my head. I can give you every memory of July 4th, 2016. I can tell you exactly where I was. I can tell you my exact reaction. I can tell you exactly how I found out.
Can you do that?
What? You want me to tell you exactly what happened?
Yeah.
I'm sitting in my basement. Now, the way my basement's set up is there's a room, and then there's like like you go out of it, it's like a long hallway. I'm sitting in the room part of it, and there's a TV, and I'm sitting on a stool, because this is when we were like first setting up our like gaming setup or whatever. I'm sitting on a stool, and I'm playing Tricky Towers. It's this game on PlayStation. It's like Tetris, all right? And I'm just waiting for this dude to make his announcement. I get a notification on my iPhone 4S. The score. It was through the score app. Kevin Durant, and I remember, the ... That screen was so small.
I
just
had
see
the
Kevin
score
Durant
too.
signs with.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I click it. Bro, Kevin Durant signs a 2-year, like $55 million deal with Golden State. 54 million something. Dog, that was the first time I've genuinely like raged at another grown man who had realistically no impact on my life.
How old were you at the time?
I was 14.
I gave you the benefit of the doubt. Raging at
I
a grown
threw
man.
a stool at a wall.
Holy cow.
Like, I was mad. I remember I was actually like genuinely like mad. And I remember I got I'll admit this. Like, I mean, I'm 14, so I don't care anymore. Obviously, I didn't admit this back then. I got so mad I cried.
It's like men can cry.
Mad
men
tears,
cry.
though. It wasn't like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, I just got so furious, man. Because I remember, like, well, that was also, people forget, like, at the time, like, Westbrook was also on his last year. So I'm thinking, like, bro, Russ is going to leave too. Like, I'm just like, everything, like, the team's just falling off. Like, that's it. Like, we got nothing out of this. And then I remember later that day, Cash Nasty posted that video. He's like, I just left my family barbecue for the 4th of July. And I just found out. Then he starts yelling, and then he puts a bunch of fireworks in his KDs, and he, like, blows up his KDs. I remember, bro, I actually, like, I was genuinely depressed. Like, I was actually, like, depressed for a summer. Because he went to Golden State. But anyway, I'm not going to go into too much more detail on that. This is a Westbrook pod. This isn't a Kevin Durant one. But I want to talk a little bit about how Westbrook found out. I know we're not really, like, this isn't drama alert, but, like, I want to mention this. You know what's crazy? They played 8 seasons together, and Westbrook found out through social media. That's what Russ stated. He said that he found out through social media, which is crazy because it seemed like they were boys. Like, it didn't seem like they were just teammates, you know? I mean, like, KD gave his whole speech. He's like, I'll run through a wall for Russ. And he's like, he's all...
I don't think I forgot about Russell.
Yeah, like, and like Westbrook did state like a month after KD left that they were still friends, and all that stuff. But like, still, that's crazy that he found out through social media. He said to the media, word for word, I found out just like y'all did. Like, damn, that hurt. I was like, yeah, I mean, like, what? I mean, I'll talk more about KD and Russ later. Obviously, because there's obviously some beef that gets stirred up between them, right? Once we talk about their matchups. But one thing I do want to state is that Kevin Durant, like, publicly stated that there was never any real beef between them, and it was, like, media stirred it up. Like, 90% of it was just, like, media just trying to create a story.
When did he come out and say this?
Go look up. I don't know the specific date, but Kevin Durant said him and Russ never actually had beef. And
Hold up.
It was just, like, a media thing.
What?
Yeah.
He came out and said this somewhat recently then.
I think it was in the 2020s. Maybe it was he said it was a media thing, that him and Russ don't actually have any real problems.
So why? It's one thing to see, I mean, we could, I'm sure.
I'll pull up the specific quote right now.
I'm sure you'd probably talk about this, but when KD comes back to OKC, the year when Russ brings PG and Melo to the crew, they had their thing, which I'm sure is not, something.
Yeah, but that's just like,
I know
in the crowd and like getting at each other.
But also the only reason I bring that up is because there is absolutely no way that when Kevin Durant was on that podcast with those two dudes who asked him about his top 5 players
that was wild.
there is
that
no
was wild. That was wild.
That he forgot about Russ. There is no way.
That was wild, bro. Bro said Ibaka.
I'm going to go with Serge Ibaka.
That was wild, bro. No, but he says right here, look, Westbrook, Kevin Durant, April 25th, 2023. So it was right before the series, right? Because they played against each other. Kevin Durant says Russell Westbrook never had beef. Dismisses Cupcake IG post. He said, I don't think we was ever in a bad place. I don't think he was throwing shade at me either. I've never really thought that anything Russ was doing was directed at me.
Yeah, because he's just being a man and owning up to it.
I'm just saying they stayed, and Russ also, I'm pretty sure I stated before, like
because there's no reason to escalate it, but they had beef. Anyway, that pod was crazy.
Yeah, that was wild. That did piss me off. You're right. But Russ, after KD left, as we all know, went on an absolute tear, regular season wise. I'll throw that in there, because he earned his first MVP the first season KD left. Since, Russ obviously had the whole franchise to himself. That's the type of pod
this is. Oh, he's going crazy. But there's something that's not so.
I actually have a lot of cool stats about Westbrook's MVP season, by the way, that I didn't know, and I can't wait to talk about. And awesome. Genuinely, I was, caught off guard. Although, and like I mentioned before, a lot of people speculated that Russ was going to leave the next season because KD was gone. Why would he stay on the Thunder? There was nobody around him, especially that season. He ends up re-signing and he also stated to the media that he was never going to leave. And he showed full commitment to the new Thunder. We obviously know what that roster looks like seasons after that KD left. But I mean, I want to really take an in-depth look at Westbrook's first season without Durant, because people do not talk about how historic that MVP season truly was.
Give them a run real quick, just so they can understand the lineup shift.
Oh, I don't have the lineup, but I think off the top of my head it was Victor Oladipo. It was Russ, Oladipo, Andre Roberson. Power forward was Enes Kanter and Steven Adams, I believe. And it was Enes Kanter, Steven Adams, because Ibaka got traded.
Okay.
Because we had the Stash Bros. I don't know if they played together in the same lineup.
I just want to show them how sorry the roster was.
It was terrible. Outside of Oladipo and Russ, nobody was shooting the ball. But Westbrook in the 2016-2017 season, obviously he passed Oscar Robertson for the most triple-doubles in a single season with 42, and he becomes the second player ever to average a triple-double behind Oscar, right? Now, at the time, I mean, obviously now we can admit that Westbrook kind of took away the bragging rights over getting a triple-double, right? He's made it so saturated in a way because he did it so much. But at the time, this was new, right? So this is obviously insanely. I mean, even now it's insane to do, but obviously it's a lot easier to get a triple-double, I believe, in this era. Anyway. At the time, nobody heard of this. That was the one record that nobody thought anybody would break. Westbrook that season won 69 out of the 101 first-place votes and was the first player since Moses Malone in 1981 to win the MVP despite his team not having 50 wins that season, which is completely justified if you look at the Thunder stats with or without Russ on the court, and I'm going to get into that in a sec, but that team was actually horrendous. The biggest story of the season, obviously, was Harden versus Westbrook when it came to the MVP honors. Harden also had an amazing season. And people forget that Harden always got edged out second or third for MVP. 2018, obviously he won it, but Harden, all the banger seasons he's always just had somebody who edges him out. But I believe that it's completely justified that Westbrook wins the MVP because Westbrook earned the scoring title, averaging 31.6 points per game. And Westbrook's season, I know you're a stat guy, especially with Basketball Reference. Westbrook's season was so great statistically that Basketball Reference had to change the formula for BPM, box plus minus, and VORP, value over replacement player, because Westbrook's season ended up being calculated to be 20% better than any other season in the database. And Basketball Reference was that doesn't pass the eye test. And they had to actually change the formula because of how great he was statistically. Westbrook used to have the highest single season BPM ever with 15.6, which was way ahead of LeBron in 2009, who had 13. Westbrook also had the highest single-season VORP with 12.4, beating MJ in 1989 with 12.
Hey, sounds like they're hating.
They literally were no, that doesn't seem good. Change the formula.
Wow. The Russ hate is real.
They didn't change the formula for any other player, but they saw Westbrook's season and they were no, that doesn't make sense. So it's a cool fact. A huge thing Westbrook gets called out for is obviously the stat padding. But as we all know, what's the point of playing a basketball game? What's the point of an NBA game? What's the main objective?
To win.
to win. Westbrook had a record of 33-9 when he put up a triple-double, which puts the Thunder on pace to win 64 games in a season when he puts up a triple-double that year. And if you look at his losses, and I've taken an in-depth look at his losses now, StatMuse, if you're hearing me, I don't know what this $20 per month BS is, where you don't get to see the full. I'm not paying you $20 a month, but off of like the 5 losses,
20 a month
to see like everything. There's a pro version now, so
20?
I only could see I only got to look at like 5 games. There was only 2 games where he lost by double digits when he put up a triple-double. Most games were 1-possession games. It was like by 3 or 4 points when they lost, when he had a triple-double. Heading into the playoffs that year, the Thunder saw a quick exit in the first round. Obviously, they lost 4-1 to the Rockets. But the stats say this had nothing to do with Westbrook and everything to do with the roster around him. Obviously, I mean, I don't hate on Sam Presti. I mean, the one summer he had, you're not going to put together a championship caliber roster, right? You're trying to figure out how to get over KD's departure. So it was obvious from the start of the season that they weren't going to do much. I mean, the season prior when they didn't have Kevin Durant, they didn't even make the playoffs. So, and you're basically looking at the same roster with Oladipo instead of Ibaka. But in the 2017 playoffs, the Thunder had a net rating of +3 with Westbrook on the court per 100 possessions and a net rating of -60 with him on the bench. In the 46 minutes Westbrook was on the bench that series, the Thunder got outscored by 60 points, which is absolutely absurd. The team was terrible from 3 outside of Oladipo and Russ. Both of them combined shot 12 threes a game on 35%, and the rest of the team that played 50-plus games and attempted at least 1 3 a game shot 12 threes combined on 31% shooting. Terrible. That roster was terrible. Like, you can't put any blame on Russ in 2017, right? That following season, obviously, the Thunder catch everybody by surprise. They bring in Melo and PG-13, quote-unquote super team in OKC now, right? Now, I'm going to do something very shamelessly here. I'm not going to go into much detail about that big 3, and I'm only going to talk about Russ specifically because we've talked about that big 3 twice now on 2 other deep dives with Melo and PG. So you go listen to those if you want to really take an in-depth look at that big 3. But we're just going to talk about Russ specifically, okay? Russ saw an immediate increase in efficiency, shooting the ball 2.4% better for the season compared to the prior season, and he still managed to average a triple-double. The team clearly did not work, though, as we all know. Again, we talk about that further detail with the Melo and PG deep dives, but let's take a deep dive at Russ specifically in the first round exit they had with Donovan Mitchell, the rookie Donovan Mitchell, and that Utah Jazz team that just recently lost Gordon Hayward and were supposed to rebuild. Through games 1 and 2, Russ had 46 and 45 points. Great, right? He shot 43 and 39 shots, which obviously is not great. Yeah, so
43
game 1,
shots?
Game 1, sorry.
I thought you were going to say 43%.
No. Game 1, he shot 43 shots. Game 2, he shot 39 shots, and he had 46 and 45.
Oof.
The rest of the series, he had very poor efficiency and high volume shots, which led to him arguably having one of the worst playoff series of his career. It was bad. I'll be honest. Like, that's a series where I'm like, all right, what are we doing here? Utah had a great defensive team too, and the Thunder had terrible rotations and lineups played. I mean, there was like moments where Billy Donovan would run Jeremy Grant and the team would do amazing, and then Melo would be complaining on the bench, and when they throw Melo back in, they would just fall apart. Melo was terrible. Yeah, I'll say that right now.
Yeah,
not great. And they should have really stuck out with Jeremy Grant. But after this embarrassing run, Melo gets traded in exchange for Dennis Schroeder, and the Thunder have a solid 6-man now. It made complete sense to get rid of Melo, and they look much better. Obviously, PG at an event with Westbrook. I believe it was a birthday event, maybe. I don't know. But PG and Russ are at this event, and with Russ beside him, he announces to everybody that he's going to re-sign and stick around in OKC. I mean, obviously, he only does this for a season, but he signs an extension with OKC, which has caught everybody by surprise. Nobody thought PG was going to stay. This led, and Paul George also stated that it was like a very easy decision for him, and Russ didn't even need to recruit him. He said he liked playing with Russ so much that it wasn't like a hard decision. Which also, by the way, I'd like to mention, to everybody that says Westbrook's a bad teammate, go look at every superstar who's talked about him. Literally, all you hear is good things about him. And a lot of players have their best seasons beside Westbrook. As I'm about to talk about here, Paul George has his most impressive season of his career, which, again, we talked about in his deep dive. Go listen to that. And again, the biggest thing and the biggest reason that the Thunder were able to do so much better that season is because Westbrook kind of threw away that ego and he took that 1B role. So he lets Paul George come in. Paul George is now the 1A in Oklahoma. In 2018, 2019, Paul George was Oklahoma's guy, right? And Westbrook was willingly taking that 1B spot where, like, if they needed a clutch shot here and then, Westbrook would obviously take a final shot whenever needed. But there are so many instances where you'll see Westbrook pass it to PG, right? And you'll always see instances where it's like down the stretch, the ball's in PG's hand, which is exactly what the Thunder needed. And once again, Russ averages a triple-double, sets 3 straight seasons of averaging a triple-double. And his shots per game, I mean, he only averaged 22 that season. His shots per game go down again because Jeremy Grant and Paul George come into the lineup. And, of course, Paul George becomes the number 1 scorer. But as we all know, Portland. In 2019, obviously the first round, the Thunder lose 4-1 to Portland. Westbrook had a terrible series. He had 2 games where he shot 25% or lower, another game where he shot 35.5% from the field, and he only had 1 game where he shot an even 50%, and that was in their 1 win. Dame just dismantled them. Paul George was dealing with like a lingering shoulder injury. I'm going to use as many excuses as I can. There was lingering injuries on that team. Paul George had surgery later after that summer. Dame hits the most absurd game winner I've ever seen. And that, it was just embarrassing. I don't know.
That was a bad shot.
It's a touchy subject. But I will say this, though. Obviously, the Thunder had back-to-back 3 first-round losses with Westbrook as their main guy. I mean, the first season, you can't really, attribute to him. Back-to-back first-round losses. And then this is like OKC's dark days. I mean, now we're in a great spot. But obviously, Paul George gets traded to the Clippers for a hefty package. Russ is said to reunite with his boy, Harden, in Houston.
Hold on. Because from the beginning of the episode, when I mentioned Russ's mid-range shooting, I knew he was better in OKC than he was in LA. But when you brought out the numbers, I was like, there's no way that's right. Can you read off the numbers again? Where did you find that? Because I'm
on whatifsports.com.
Yeah, what if? I'm on Basketball Reference. You want to hear the numbers?
No.
What if sports? Did you make that up? What?
No, I just looked up Westbrook. I'll send you the link. I just looked up Westbrook mid-range stats.
What if sports?
I just looked up Westbrook mid-range stats.
Do you want to see what I have here?
Yeah, do it quick and then let's because we're already at the hour mark.
For his career, I have this is based on distance. So he shoots from 0 to 3 feet. Russ is an incredible finisher, 60%. But for a guy who shoots like low 40s on his career, there's no way he was shooting 50s in the mid-range, all right? And I knew that was capped the second I heard it. From 3 to 10 feet, which if you want to call the mid-range, just like a kind of short mid-range, 35% for his career. The 10 to 16 foot is just under 40% for his career, 39%. Now, that is like the Melo jab step mid-range. That's the 10 to 16. Now you got 16 to 3-point, which is like the one dribble pull-up, 38% for his career. What if...
Just do the Houston segment. Just do the Houston segment.
This guy's trying to push untruthful information of what if sports.
No. I say to the link.
What? You texted me?
Yeah.
What if sports? That is crazy.
Check it out after. Let's do the Houston. We're already at an hour mark. I don't want to...
Man, what if sports?
I looked up Westbrook's mid-range stats, and that was the first website that came up.
Dude, is this a percentile of like where he stands in the league? There's no way this is right. Dude, I think you're reading the stats wrong, bro.
No, I'm not. Look at it. Mid-range percentage. Like, come on.
Look off Basketball Reference. What if sports?
Do that Houston segment.
Anyway, I can't believe I just caught you red-handed. I knew that was a lie.
No, don't say I lied, bro. Like, come on. You saw the website.
You were spreading misinformation.
The website was spreading misinformation. I was the middleman.
Anyways, you didn't go over the trade, right? I'll do the trade.
No.
In the 2019 offseason, Russell Westbrook is now traded. This is after PG had been flipped to Los Angeles for Shea and a load of picks. Russ gets dealt to Houston for Chris Paul, who was paired with James Harden at the time, for Chris Paul and 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. Chris Paul's value, I guess, was really down. And Russ was also coming off some crazy years. Anyways, in Houston, their roster looks like Russell Westbrook, James Harden, initially Covington, PJ Tucker, and Clint Capella. Capella only played 39 games that year, which means who are we going to put at center? PJ Tucker, all 6'5" of him. And Daniel House is going to come into the lineup, which is a very modern, 3-point oriented, offensive oriented team, which, to be fair, I think really suits Westbrook's play style to have Tucker at the 5. Unfortunately, it's just not something that is sustainable for the poor guy. But it is nice to have like a legit stretch 5. Like that's not like, no, hopefully like that, like PJ Tucker in the corner as a stretch 5 is crazy. On defense, that's different. Anyways, Russ in Houston averaged 27, 7, and 8 on the year, 47% shooting, which is already really good. But what's so crazy about Houston is that he didn't start so hot. In December through February, those, 3 months, December, January, February, Russ averaged 32, 7, and 8 on 50% shooting. By far, I don't want to say the best stretch of basketball he's ever had, but that is the most efficient stretch of basketball he's ever had. I understand he's playing next to James Harden, but this was like Houston Westbrook was legit. The Rockets went 18 and 8 in that stretch. And you got to remember, they don't really have a center out there. Anyways, unfortunately, Russ had quad issues at the end of the year, which kind of leaked into the playoffs. The Rockets ended up facing the Thunder, and Chris Paul had led the Thunder to a 7-game series with, who was that? Lou Dort. Who was on that team, Sainey? That Thunder team.
Chris Paul, Shea, Lou Dort, Steven Adams, and who was the power forward? Oh, I want to remember this. Oh, this is such a beautiful team. I love this team. This team is like etched in Danilo Gallinari. Gallinari was the power forward. That was a fire squad. Oh my days.
No, that's a fun team.
Yeah.
But anyways, it took a ridiculous James Harden defensive play for the Rockets to pull it out. Russ only played 3 games that series, but was super limited. Averaged like 15 points, but he just wasn't ready. Anyways, they move in to, this is the bubble playoffs, obviously. After beating the Thunder, they take on LA, who would go on to win the title, so they obviously lose. They lost in 5, and it just was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. It's hard to stop Anthony Davis when you got PJ Tucker rushing around.
That's no. But if you're not like in tap with Houston Russ, you got to go watch some highlights on YouTube. To everybody,
no, Houston Russ is underrated.
He was fire.
Yeah, I stand on that. Anyways, before we get into the LA years,
Washington, real quick. Yeah.
Yes, Westbrook was traded again to Washington for John Wall and a first-round pick. I remember getting this notification and being like, that's a pretty even deal. Because I know, and I'm not trying to dog on Russ, I thought at the time, because John Wall had not really played yet. And he was still with Washington. So he was going to come back. I was like, and the reason I was so high on John Wall is because, not that he was ever a great shooter, but he had compared to Russell Westbrook, a serviceable jump shot.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a serviceable jump shot. And he was also an incredible passer who had great pace. So I didn't think
John Wall. I hate how John Wall is somebody I forget.
It's so aggravating because he was so like
good.
Such an
John
athlete.
Wall deep dive has to happen.
And what's crazy, it needs to happen. If John Wall had come back from this injury in like 2016, if his career started 5 years earlier, he would have been fine. The issue is now you're in 2021 and his quote unquote serviceable jump shooting is no longer serviceable in today's NBA.
No.
It doesn't pass, which is why he's just gotten tossed around to the Clippers and he just can't play anymore, which is so sad. But John Wall is like, man, he one of the best passers I've ever seen.
Genuinely, like one of the most fun players. One of the most fun players I've ever watched.
But that's the trade. So now you have Russ in Washington with Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, and Alex Len. They weren't expected to do much, but Russ actually started off struggling. I think Beal averaged.
As always, that's like the case every team he gets traded.
Did Beal average 30 that year? Or was it the next year? He averaged a lot.
He did average.
Russ finished the year with stats of 22, 11, and 11. Another triple-double on 44% shooting. But the last 30 games, he averaged 23, 14, and 13. He had stat lines. These are two legit stat lines that he had in actual basketball games. A 14, 24, 21 game. So 24 assists, 21 rebounds. And a 35-point, 21 assists, 14 rebound game. That was Washington Russ in a nutshell.
It was him.
What is even crazier than those stat lines is the fact that when they entered the playoffs and they were beaten 5 by Philadelphia, you want to know who torched them?
Ben Simmons.
Tobias Harris.
Oh.
He averaged 25 points, 10 rebounds on 50, 38, 90. He almost went 50, 40, 90 on him on a 25 points per game. Tobias Harris.
And Russ sucked.
He's worth every penny.
Russ sucked.
Oh, and I wasn't going to bring that up, but Russ shot 33%.
Yeah,
but he averaged triple-double.
Yeah,
he averaged triple.
Funny enough, that was the year I started doing TikTok when Russ was in Washington. I was like the first playoff run where I was doing TikTok. My mate, you got a triple-double. But
yeah, I started. Sorry, just since we're bringing that up, I started TikTok that season, but like the start of it, the very start. So I actually think I did like a breakdown of the. Remember the 2020 finals with LeBron and Danny Green kicked out? Like that was one of my first videos. So I caught all the 2021 next, but I do remember this season like vividly.
Yeah, it was a dope season. Because that was the year where they like didn't have fans, right?
Yeah.
And we stayed. So it was a weird season. My favorite Wizards moment, by the way, before I get into the Lakers, was when they were down 5 against the Nets. Bradley Beal hits a half-court shot, and then Westbrook, somebody steals the ball, passes it to Westbrook, and Westbrook hits a 3, and they just score a 6 ball. I was watching that game live. I started screaming.
It's also worth noting that he broke the triple-double record that year.
Yep. It's a legendary year for him. After a solid, underrated season with the Wizards, the Lakers pull the trigger on trading Russ, and they give away Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, the 22nd pick of the 2021 draft, I believe, and a 2024 second-round pick, 2028 second-round pick. And they create this big three in LA with Russ, Braun, and AD. Now, I mean, I'll admit, in hindsight, looking at this roster, it was obvious they weren't going to do anything. It was obvious that roster was going to do nothing. They do not fit well together. But I mean, let's take a look at Russ and figure out how much of it is truly Russ's fault. They combined Russ and Braun, who are both players that need the ball in their hands, and the Lakers expected Russ to reinvent himself to fit that team instead of just allowing Russ to be who he is as a player. I mean, if you watch Lakers games, you ever notice how much they make him like corner sit or be like a spot-up shooter, which I've never seen Westbrook in his life be.
We can debate this because I think we might agree more than you think.
Yeah, no, I got a banter point for you. A lot of this is going to be debate. I'm just throwing out a little bit of key facts before we get into it. That roster also had zero shooting around that big three of AD, Russ, and Braun. AD was injury-prone like crazy, and Vogel was not a great coach for that team. Like, Vogel did not know how to coach that team. A huge hit was Russ's contract, I'll admit. I mean, the $47 million really hindered that team's ability to get any talent whatsoever, and it forced them to play with a very below-mid roster around him. Right? Russ also, at like a lot of moments, showed no motivation, and it was clear that the fans and the ridicule of LA got to him. He would literally openly talk about it in post-game interviews. And, I mean, even at the end of the season, didn't he blame LeBron and AD? The Lakers are so bad.
Should I just say it now? That was one of the dumbest trades in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, easily.
I knew from the jump that someone who plays LeBron ball cannot play with LeBron.
With LeBron. Yeah.
That's just common sense. I don't know they were thinking.
The Lakers did so bad they missed the play-in entirely, so they couldn't even be an 8 seed. And Russ never had a chance to play with LA in the playoffs. On paper, Russ didn't look terrible, though. He averaged 18, 7, and 7.
No. Be quiet.
On paper, he didn't look terrible. But when you watch the highlights, Russ admittingly had a lot of lowlights. A lot of head-scratching turnovers, a lot of low percentage, low IQ moments. I think by far was the lowest basketball IQ he's ever shown in his career was when he was in a yellow jersey. And I'm going to hit you with a blindside here, Hoop, because I want to start debating. I know we've kind of been fading away from doing banter. Do you think that, how much of the blame do you think should be pinned on Russ?
If I were to get passionate about this and speak my heart, I'd say literally 0. Because I think, but here's the thing, I'm not no. You think I'm protecting Russ. I am just telling you that Russell Westbrook is not fit to play and win with other... No, I'm protecting him in saying that, no, it's not his fault. It's the Lakers' fault for bringing in someone who cannot shoot the basketball from distance reliably to a person who is arguably the greatest player of all time, and the ball is going to be in his hands in big moments. So you have Russell Westbrook, someone who's also used to having the ball in his hands in big moments. Now, he can't do that because that would be idiotic. You have LeBron James on your team. So where are you going to put him? On the dunker spot?
No, literally, Davis. They put him in the corner. He's doing spot-up shoot. He's spot-up shooting.
That is idiotic. And I blame the Lakers for, and it's honestly, it's probably LeBron who pushed that, and the GM was just a puppet.
He did. No, it was LeBron. LeBron wanted to trade.
I can't imagine that a GM with a brain would want to sign Russell Westbrook to that team. And, right, I'm protecting Russ and saying that he was not fit to be in that situation. But Russ is also not that type of player to play.
I will say this about Russ, and I will admit this. He was freaking terrible. Even though he was not playing the style of basketball he was playing, as an NBA player, there were some shots and there were some moments and there were some turnovers that should not have happened. For $47 million, I mean, there was a game against Golden State where he had 6 turnovers in the first quarter.
And you know what I would say to that? There's been a lot of moments like that throughout his career, and that's what the Lakers should have known going into this year. Because we could talk about we can make this another banter point. Was KD not? I think he's an absolute snake for Golden State, but was he justified in trying to leave OKC? And I think to a pretty good degree.
I don't care that he left OKC. I agree. I'll admit, I agree that team did not know how to play any shooting around. And I don't think Russ was the problem. I think the fact that they didn't play to Russ's style.
A bit of a problem.
I don't think it was. I disagree. And even Kevin Durant admits that. And on his burner account, he would literally say, outside of Westbrook, who did I have? Well, it was the shooting. It was the roster they constructed in Oklahoma. Why was Andre Roberson?
Your point guard's usually supposed to shoot.
Yeah, but Westbrook wasn't terrible in OKC. He wasn't terrible in OKC. I'll pull out the numbers right now.
What is he, 32%, 33%?
You could have won with him if they put more shooters around
that
team.
You could have won with it. That's putting it's you're winning in despite of his shooting. That's not happened with a superstar. You're winning in despite of him?
No. I'm saying that Thunder team, it was more so the Thunder roster on why Kevin Durant left, not Westbrook.
How much better could the roster have gotten when you already have Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and you have
just put a bunch of mid shooters around him? But they had no shooting, bro. They had no shooting. No shooting. Their best shooter outside of them was Anthony Morrow. They had no shooting.
All I'm saying is they
had Jeremy Lamb for a solid season. And we had nobody, bro.
I'm saying Russell Westbrook, he was not a good shooter, and the Lakers should have known that. They also should have known.
No, he's not a good shooter at all. I'm not arguing his shooting abilities.
They also should have known that Russ only has, maybe you can contest this, really only one speed. And in a moment where he needs to slow down and play playoff basketball, you're taking away his superpower by by telling him to slow down, which is to
run
and
a break, telling him to spot up and and sit in the corner.
That's the thing.
I agree.
So no, but I'm also saying that it's bad on him that he does not know how to do that. This is someone who we look at a great passer like Rajon Rondo, someone who always elevates in the playoffs. He can pick apart a defense. Russ, who has that type of passing ability, does not have those same abilities as Rondo to like pick apart a defense without being sloppy. No. And usually that's something that like rookies do and young players. Russ has always looked like a young player to me. He still has young tendencies. And the Lakers should have known that. It's completely their fault, but it's also because they should have known that Russ was not ready for this. I'm sorry.
Russ was never ready for that Lakers roster. And he never will be. Clippers. Clippers, though. It's just... Clippers are a good team.
Yeah.
Clippers literally fit Westbrook's play style. The Clippers are the exact team that Westbrook needed. And he elevated that team. Without Kawhi or PG, Kawhi was there for like 2 games, and they looked amazing.
So I can defend Kawhi Leonard for my entire life. And I will say that any team that he is on, you could put anyone around him, he's still going to look like Michael Jordan. But are we saying that now, at this point in Russell Westbrook's career, he is no longer a centerpiece? He's someone that...
What? He's getting a minimum contract.
No. I'm saying he's not someone that you would cater to. So why all of a sudden does he need a team that suits him if he is now...
He doesn't need it. He's not going to get it, but he can choose to join a team. I don't know if you know this, but he took a pay cut to stay with the Clippers because he knew that team would fit him.
I'm saying if you're now at this point in your career where you're not after all-star games and you're someone who's trying to contribute to win, obviously as a player you're going to try to go to a place where it fits you best. But is it not is it not way more valuable to fit around a team instead of having a team fit around you? Because that's
exactly what he's doing.
And no, I'm saying it's a detriment to Russell Westbrook that throughout the older parts of his career, that you can't run certain lineups because of your lack of shooting and your lack of ability to mold.
I agree.
And the Clippers fit him. And I think I agree. I love his tenacity and I love Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
But it must be said that there are literally lineups you can't run if you have him on the court, literally just because he's on the court. And he's not someone who is giving you the MVP caliber year anymore. So it's...
I agree. I'll say this. Westbrook can be the worst player on the court, but he could also be the best player on the court depending on the situation you put him in, and he'll play the exact same style of basketball in both situations. That's the type of player he is. That's like, we have to admit it. Like he literally, you can put him, he can play the same amount of output he'll play in both situations. And in one situation, he'll be the best player you'll ever see in your life. And the other situation, he'll be the worst thing you'll ever see in your life. That's just how it is. And the perfect yin and yang, like the Lakers and the Clippers. What did he change about his game from the Lakers to the Clippers? He didn't change anything. He's the exact same player. Right? But you just have him in a different situation now where he could kick out to PG or Kawhi or Terrence Mann or have a guy like Mason Plumlee in the paint. You know what I mean? Like, he's not kicking out to freaking Patrick Beverley and Montrezl Harrell. And it's the real, like, right? I'm not even going to say AD because AD played like 4 games.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and what's crazy is that because I just looked up why the Lakers would have thought to trade for Russ, and it was because in 2021 that was the year where they got bounced in the playoffs. AD sucked. He was like partly
injured. The Suns,
and LeBron kept on giving up. Like at the end of the games, he would just kind of like walk up the floor. That roster was not a star away from competing. It was ready to compete when Anthony Davis and LeBron were ready to compete.
Yeah, and they traded away every piece that would put them in contention.
Yeah.
They traded away a championship roster for Russ, which is ridiculous. I agree with you. We're just going to keep circling around the same point, though. Do you have any new points, or should we...
Oh, I just had to let it be known.
Yeah.
That, I'm not afraid to give the man criticism, even on a deep dive. Yeah, I got to be objective. You feel me?
No, yeah, of course. But this was a great episode. I mean, I have nothing else to give on my end.
Yeah, I mean...
All I'm going to say is I agree with a lot of the criticism that Russ gets as a Russ fan, but also I think that he is heavily underrated in that same sense.
All right.
In that same sense. I think that people look at that Lakers season, the season and a half, and really put that against him, which I think is unfair because he's like 34.
Can I figure out this mid-range shooting?
I mean, try to. Yeah, but I want to say this. And again, it stems to this theory I have that LeBron James ruined people's legacies because of how good LeBron is. People expect everybody to be good at that age. Which bro, back in the day, you used to see dudes fall off at like 32 in NBA legends. Yeah, he's a legend. Crazy career. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's, oh my gosh. Stat key on the bottom of this What If Sports.
Yeah.
It says mid percentage equals percentage of shots from mid-range. This guy. I was like, yeah, he took a lot of middies. He took a lot of middies.
All right, well, this was a great episode. Thank
56%.
you for 56%. Yeah, okay, well, I'm sorry. I just saw the first thing, all right? Like, geez Louise. Anyway, this was a great episode. Thank you guys for listening. Absolute banger. Make sure to show love by responding through the Spotify comments. Obviously, you can give us any criticism or things that you liked, and also the same thing with YouTube. Make sure to comment. Make sure to give us any sort of rating of 5-star, subscribe, like, whatever you need to do to show us support on our end. And we hope you guys enjoyed. I mean, obviously, Westbrook was a fun one, and we'll see you guys for next week. Peace.